Okay, make yourself comfortable in the chair. And before we do anything else, just give yourself a few moments to settle into your posture. And we get lots of detail in Tai Chi about, where the weight should be, where the hips are, where our shoulders go, and so on and so forth. But there's another side to this, which is when you have a sense of where you're going, it's like if you're planning a journey, if you have a sense that, that there's a place that you're going to, then you can plot the journey. So just call back to your mind some kind of memory of how it can feel when you just sit like this, your posture, with whatever kind of details and images work best for you. If that's necessary, it might not be necessary, because I think we can get to a point where the intention itself, it's like you're going somewhere, and you just give your body time to adjust, to find a way through. We find out, I think, that our bodies are actually quite good at doing this. So this is in a sense, a pure intention, not an intention to, I don't know, to tense and release or to move as though you're in water, but just to where you're going. And it always takes a little bit of time. My favorite image has always been when they're saying sit in meditation. It's like leaving a jar of muddy water on the table, and in time it will just settle. So any sort of details, any kind of imagery that we bring into this should be done without shaking the jar around, shall we say. Just resting in this position as close as you can find yourself getting to it. And then rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arm. The other side. Up and palm to the chest. Your belly. And your legs. So just sitting back. What you can do with your thoughts, with your attention, is to focus them on your posture, your breathing, and so on and so forth, so that this more intuitive sense of the posture and what the feeling of the posture, the feeling of the movement of things like your breathing is allowed to emerge. Sometimes we can think too hard, and the classic example for me is you're chatting to somebody and you're talking about somebody else and you're trying to remember their name, and it's on the tip of your tongue, you can't quite get it out. So you carry on talking, and then a couple of sentences later, the name just suddenly emerges. So the details, the understanding, the imagery are all very important and they're all useful, but they can become barriers in themselves. What's the balance between them? When we arrive at the posture and it doesn't feel quite right, that's when we can call the information back. So it's a bit like if you ride a bike or drive a car, You don't drive along and cycle along thinking, oh yeah, that's working, that's working, that's working, that's where it should be. You just drive along, cycle along. But then it doesn't feel quite right, and that's when you go into the process of analysing. And then coming back up to the upright position. This leaves our direct intention, I suppose you could call it, free to focus on the particular movements. And so, we have a routine, you have an expectation of what's coming, you have an awareness of certain postures, maybe not all of them. Your favorite ones would be the ones that you're most likely to be able to do this with, and you have a kind of shape. And so that shape then becomes part of your intention for your body to move in that shape. Starting very gently, turning your head. Try not to put any more pressure on the side of your neck as you do this. Remember, we're just trying to encourage the blood and the energy and the body fluids to circulate a bit more freely. In weather like this, they can get a bit congested. Muscles can swell, joints can swell. But as you start to move, that would take the sort of trapped heat, stagnant heat, away from those tissues. Hands on the shoulders, circling around, feeling the movement in your chest and your upper back, expanding in the chest as your elbows go back. And then going forwards, hands down to your sides, rotating your arms. And then winding around. And back the other way. Resting your hands. Ease forwards a little. And turn your hips just a little bit to redirect the movement more towards one leg. Feeling your legs filling up as your weight goes forwards. and then your hips as you go back. And the filling and emptying image is quite a good one. And particularly as you go forwards, as you start to move forward, ideally, the first place you will feel any pressure will be movement, but pressure should be the sole of your foot. This is true in standing as well. And it's quite useful because it's a way of sort of bypassing things like your knees. So if you find that you're doing this and you're getting sort of sharp pains in your knees, try and just apply that process to softening and releasing, and use your intention to have the idea that your weight's going to drop down into your foot and then fill the leg upwards, like pouring water into a glass. It doesn't get stuck at the top, it goes down to the bottom and comes up. And that's quite a useful thing to practice in the chair, because then eventually you'll find that you're able to do that standing. So turn and try that with the other side. And obviously it's going to be more difficult when you stand because there's more weight. You haven't got the support of the chair. And likewise, when you go back, where it's dropping into hips and buttocks rather than halfway up your back or in your shoulders. And then turning, so the intention is for the weight to drop into your foot, back into the hip behind it, turning, transferring to the next hip, rolling forwards into the foot again. Go back the other way. Come back to the center. And then stepping out. And on the other side. So one of the most important core feelings that we're looking for, and earlier I was saying about that sort of almost projection of an image, an idea, of a feeling within the body that we focus our intention on. And this one, sung, releasing, yielding, relaxing, really would come right at the heart of that. So to practice it again, first of all in stages. So upper part of your body, ribs, chest, shoulders, upper back, just pull in, not too tightly, just enough to feel that it's getting a bit stiffer, and then release it. And if you've done this before, and if you practiced it perhaps, then again, there'll be a familiar sense. And I would say that I feel as though the soft tissue of my body is flowing inwards and downwards. And then in the middle of your body, so lower back and belly, hips and buttocks, thighs and knees. So you tighten up a little bit, you sink down, and as you sink down, tilt forwards, releasing into your legs, same thing, just sort of scrunch your toes up a little bit and then let them relax and feel the contact with the floor, feel how that pushes you back. Let your hands drop down, turn your hands palm in, releasing in your hips, filling into your legs, rotating your arms, and then reversing that through your feet and back into your hips. Bird fold your wings. So that's looking at this quality of song in stages, in a sense, in the mechanical sense. But there's a certain quality to the releasing that we want to start to feel the movement. So the movement itself moves in that way, if that makes sense. Changing now, hands facing backwards, fisherman cast net. Forwards, drawing your arms as though you're in water. So you feel the pressure of the water against the front of your body. And then as you go back, you feel it against the back of your body. And this could be a familiar feeling. You can feel it in your arms as well, but maybe just focus on your chest and upper back. And so we start to get that fluid, connected movement within the body. And as we become familiar with that, it becomes a significant driver, a significant source of the energy. And then rolling the ball in, coming back, drawing your arms up. As you go forward, you imagine the ball underneath your arms. You're not trying to lift your arms, you're pushing yourself back, sinking into your hips, letting your arms follow, and then the elbows drop, and that sort of takes the hands up just a little bit more. But this time it's not just a sensation of forwards and backwards movement in your upper body, but a kind of rising movement and expansion, your belly, the solar plexus, your chest. So whilst you're pulling on your arms, there is also a developing sense of them being lifted up from underneath. And then turning your hands in, pigeon spread its wings. Sit back, drawing your elbows apart, expanding in the front of your body, and then contracting. Thinking of your sternum, your breastbone in the middle of your rib cage, acting like the hinges of one of these folding doors. And then feeling the corresponding movement in your upper back as the chest expands, it's like your shoulder blades slide together. Vice versa. One more time. Coming into pushing wave. This time your hands stay in front of your hips. Your elbows do go out a little bit. So still engaging in chest and upper back. So the push itself, a large proportion of this is going to be, of course, in the transfer of the weight. But we begin to take note of the changing patterns in the upper part of our body, because the movement, the energy has to get from the center of our body to our arms. And it can do that in various ways, and vary from movement to movement. Not really set in stone. And again, intention is really important here. We observe what's going on. We bring our attention to the different patterns of expansion and contraction. We can begin to analyze, to investigate which actual patterns are the most useful to us. One more time going forwards. And then roll your fingers into a hollow fist. This time they stay in line with the hips, so your elbows flatten out a little bit, they don't lock out. And again, most of the movement is in the movement of the weight. If I do this without doing anything with my arm, you'll see this is how far the hand moves, the fist moves. If I do this with just my arm, this is how far it moves, about half the distance. When we combine the two, we get a bigger movement and we rotate the arm. Being careful to leave this elbow just a little bit soft at the end of the extending movement. So again, when we express the punch, there are things happening in our back, in the front of our body, our chest, and so on. So I'm opening your fingers and winding out. One more time, forwards and back. When you come back this time, turn your hands palm down in front of your hips, just slightly above your legs. Turn a little bit, ease forwards, and let that movement forwards. Extend your arms, swing across, and sit back. And then in the other direction. So polishing the table. One last time. Hands in front of your belly. Turning, a gentle push down through hips and feet, with an expanding movement like a wave coming up through your body, and then contract. Important to get that downward movement. Keep the connection down into the ground beneath you. And then turning your hands out. You have the wild goose. So the image of the bird in flight is a useful one. You can use that. But remember what I was saying about, in a sense, going beyond the imagery. Never leaving it behind completely, not rejecting it, just recognizing that it's not the end of the process. And then easing forward, so your hands can drop in front of your knees, coming back and parting the cloud. So you're painting the circle with your fingertips. Now this time, going back to the first of these three movements. So rooting down, and then the wild goose. Don't rush to change over. Parting the cloud. And have a sense of what's involved in that change. A movement that, if you've done this before, you will recognize, and fairly straightforward movements, all of them, maybe with a particular image or idea behind them. Name of the movement. And again, those images, they can all contribute to the shape of the movement. And again, a certain amount of investigation here. What is useful? Are you doing something that is maybe blocking the movement, sitting back too far, or too far forwards, or whatever? So this time, letting your hands drop, then the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders for a moment, and the next quality of expansion, again, one elbow being pushed up and then dropping down, drawing your hand and your fingers up. Just clasp the fingers gently, rotate your arm and pull down. Imagine you're plucking a plum off the tree. Change sides, you reach up. You don't want to grip tightly, so it's a very soft feeling of wrapping your hands around. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Do one more on each side. So as we become more familiar with the routines and the patterns, so we develop this inner awareness and this sense of the movement being built from deep in the body to be expressed through our arms and hands. And on some occasions, of course, to be expressed through our feet when we do stepping movements. Now, bringing your hands in a little bit, press up, just a little bit higher, and still in front of your body. Yeah. Push out sideways. You also learn which movements work best where and how. This one I always feel when we do it like this really causes a lot of movement in my back expanding and contracting, almost like my back and not just the surface of my back, but deep into my back. I've been very gently massaged. This time, as you push out sideways, a little turn in your hips and waist, not so much that you find that you're losing that sense of the movement right up through your back and spine. Turn in the other direction, so very light quality to the movement. Facing the front and pushing out. One last round. This time, when you push your arms out, at the same time, extend one leg. Knee stays a little bit bent. Turning your hands palm up, easing forward, scooping the sea, and looking at the sky. Hips sink back, that draws your shoulders up. You feel again that expansion up through the front of the body. And then rolling forwards and down. Most of your weight back in your hips. Be careful with your back. Make sure you haven't locked up your knees, particularly the knee that's extended. One more time, coming back. And at the end of this movement, as your arms drop down again, a loose fist, pushing forwards and upwards, drawing your arms afterwards, grasping the tiger's hands. Lengthening through your spine, from the base of your spine to the middle of your back, behind the chest, and into your skull. Now change sides. Same two movements. The other foot forward, scooping the sea, and looking at the sky. and change into grasping the tiger deers. One more time. And once again, just coming back, sitting at a third of your weight forwards, supported very much from within by your skeleton. And that will work for you all the time. You're in line with the pull of gravity. So down from the side, slightly angled forwards, and that means that my rib cage can hang down. My spine is working, my back is working, but not unduly so. So the forwards I go, the more likely I am to strain. And of course, worst case scenario is I'll just roll out of the chair. Likewise, going back, if I go back too far, I'll go head over heels back. So looking for that midpoint, that point of equilibrium, however you think about it. Just taking a couple of slow, gentle breaths. Good. And then once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. The other side. Upper part of your chest. Your belly. Your legs. Important to pay a bit of attention to the legs when you've been sitting for a while, especially in this type of weather where it can really slow your circulation down. And for the same reason, pushing your heels up. And around. Back the other way. Lovely. And then standing. And the opportunity to have a sip of water. So I'm going to move my chair out the way as always, otherwise I'll be tripping over it. But it can be interesting to use the chair for support. I'll come back to that in a moment. But to begin with, the feet hip width apart and just sinking down again. Do this as a little sequence of 3, rooting down. The wild goose. Passing the back. And then one more time. Shake it. Now, for 1 foot forwards, keep the width of your step as always. So standard bow stance, hip width, and about the same in length. Before we start to move your weight, just cast your mind back to when we were transferring the weight in the chair. I said about your feet with the first place, the soles of your feet, in fact, where you feel the pressure of the weight. This is where using the chair can be very useful. The problem is that that's quite a difficult thing to do. And if, say, for instance, you've got trouble in your knee, then you're always going to want to protect the knee. And that's quite reasonable because if for instance, I'm here, you see my knees in line with my toes. If I have a tendency to do this, then the tension in my knee is actually stopping my knee being pushed further over. So it's good to get it down in get the weight down into your foot. But there is a slight risk that could happen. So go carefully. And again, this is where having a little bit of support can actually be very useful for you because you can just take it nice and easy and slowly and gradually build up this idea. And at the same time, you'll be conditioning muscles in particular, and you'll be aware, oh, there's a bit of pressure on the side of the knee, adjusting the knee, and so on and so forth. So it's quite a slow movement, and it's a progression from the weight transfer in the chair. Shake out, and then on the other side. Got strong in the legs, so go nice and easy. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the chair now. And 1 foot forwards again, and this time let the weight fill in, and then as you settle in, raising your toes and your heels. And more of your weight starts to flow down. So again, we're doing this in stages. We did it in the chair. We did it with the support of the chair. And now we're doing it, well, you might still be using that support, which is fine if you are, but now we're doing it with an increased amount of weight flowing down through the leg so that we can apply it to the stepping. So you put in planting forwards. Don't rush this. And on the other side, you're drawing your toes and your heel up. It's always accompanied by a sense of releasing in our hips. and then stepping in. Take a few steps forwards. And then back. Right foot forwards. Minimal movements. Standing version of fisherman casting. And then standing version of pushing wave. On the side. And then going forwards, and from here, turning a little bit to your left. So how that separates the arms. And then drop them down as you move your weight. Turn into the front. Just let the arms swing up as wind blows them. Settling into the front foot. Expanding through the upper body. Moving the weight, contracting in the upper body. Settling in and expanding again. Directing the movement through the turning in the center part of your body, the area between hips and waist. Good. Shake. And on the other side, left foot forwards, fisherman castanet. pushing wave. In the forward position, turning into wind blows. This time you go forwards, settle down in the front foot, push your back knee forwards to raise the heel and bring the foot in. Take a step on, forwards or backwards, depending on where you've got the room, of course. Same thing on this side. And then comfortable, just raising your leg, just dragonfly skin from there. And then changing direction if you haven't done so already. And then go back to your chair. So once again, coming back to what we might think of as the sort of the center, the central qualities. And these are summed up in the Chinese term Zhongding, which should translate as central equilibrium. So again, you know, it's quite it's a list of things, but they're all connected into the same thing. We talk about rooting down and alignment, about the calmness, the stillness of the mind, a sense of being able to release, and the strength that comes from that when we discover that we've got that strength within the body. So Sung is also part of this, and we look at them separately, but we want them all to be one thing. And one of the images of central equilibrium is the mountain. And so these are the things that we would take out of the session into our daily lives with this. The rest of what we do are ways of expressing those qualities and actually ways of, to an extent, challenging those qualities. It's one thing to feel like that when you're sitting in a chair. It's quite another when you're trying to stand on one leg. So it's not that the other things aren't important because they feed back into this. They increase our ability to come back to these things. But we don't walk down. Well, I don't walk down the road doing dragonfly skin, the water and so on and so forth. But I try to have those what I've described as central principles, core principles, working for me as much as possible the whole time. So embrace tiger, return to mountain, our closing exercise is the one where we find out how to come back. So pushing your arms out, bring them around as though you're going to hold a ball against your chest. Listen to your elbows drop, feeling your hands coming in and then down. And again, there's an intention to come back. But you may also notice particular details that are useful for you to remember? One more time. And then rest. And open your eyes. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope that was useful to you. So enjoy the rest of your day at this point.